Ladies and gentlemen and friends of the free Hanseatic city of Hamburg, we'd like to welcome you to our film, Hamburg Around the Dock Area. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy the coming hour of unique shots of the Hamburg harbor, parts of which are reminders of the harbor's rather humble beginnings. Join us with personalities from politics and business at the Hamburg Town Hall, celebrating the harbor's 800th birthday. Come along on a tour of the harbor and experience Sail 89, featuring traditional boats and tall-mast ships as part of the Hamburg celebration. As the crowning finish, we'll show you original historic film from the 1930s, as well as something special, an impressive direct comparison between then and today. We hope you enjoy this short journey, Hamburg Around the Dock Area. From the 3rd through the 7th of May 1989, the free Hanseatic city of Hamburg officially celebrated its 800th harbor birthday. Almost 3 million people from Germany and abroad took part in the festivities. On May 3rd, 1989, the opening ceremony for the 800th harbor birthday took place in the large ballroom of the Hamburg Town Hall. In his opening address, the then mayor of Hamburg, Dr. Henning Forscherau, emphasized that the celebration was in fact for everyone. After officially greeting and introducing prominent guests, the mayor indicated how happy the people of Hamburg were to be celebrating this event.
Ein Fest für alle, für unsere Gäste aus Europa und Übersee und für die Hamburgerinnen und Hamburger selbst, vom Hafenarbeiter bis zum Bankier. Sie alle sind gekommen. Für den Senat begrüße ich Sie alle sehr herzlich.
Ich freue mich darüber, dass am Geburtstag unseres Hafens neben Adel, Minister und Bürgermeister auch ein Hafenarbeiter ein Wort sagen.
Not only VIPs had a chance to say a word or two. A harbor worker explained the technical qualifications of his fellow workers and what they were capable of doing on the job. In addition to Mayor Richard Hansen from Hamburg's sister city of Hamburg in the state of New York, other prominent guests included Dr. Michael Otto from the well-known mail-order house with the same name.
In the Middle Ages,
royalty was also present in the form of Norway's Crown Prince Harald and his wife Sonja. The royal couple were clearly among the stars of the event.
of northern Germany and Norway, especially western Norway and northward along the coast.
Wir haben dieses Jubiläum unter das Motto gestellt, 800 Jahre Hafen in Hamburg, eine Geschichte.
Best wishes and words of praise for Hamburg and its citizens with a look to the future were offered by the former German Secretary of State, Hans-Dietrich Genscher.
Nach ihr zurückzusehen. Betrachtung der Geschichte verheißt nur dann konkreten Gewinn, wenn sie uns bewusst macht, welche Aufgaben wir jetzt und in der Zukunft zu bewältigen haben.
Following the official opening ceremony at the town hall, the festivities were opened to the general public from aboard the museum and restaurant ship in the harbor, the Rickmers.
Einen wunderschönen 800. Hafengeburtstag für alle. Der Hafengeburtstag und die Hafenmeile sind hiermit eröffnet.
Hundreds of thousands of visitors had gathered at the harbor to enjoy the entertainment and show programs. Performers such as Arnim Dahl, who was a movie star through the 1950s and 60s, and Germany's top stuntman, proved that even at the age of 67 he was still worthy of his nickname, Klettermaxe, the climbing king. Aloof and apparently unimpressed by all of the action in the harbor, Hamburg's landmark, Mikkel, is always visible on the Hamburg skyline. The focal point of the celebration were the hundreds of boats and ships of all kinds gathered in the harbor. In addition to the many barges, there were also dozens of tugboats, such as the Harbor Tug Tiger, which is normally tied up in the museum harbor Uvelgöne. Hamburg's last coal-fired, steam-powered tugboat, built in 1910, was named after tiger flour, a popular product of the time that the tug often transported. Other maritime participants included a floating crane from the Museum for Hamburg History. This self-navigating floating pontoon with its whip swing crane, Hala 1, was built in 1928 and was in operation in the harbor until 1984. The floating crane, weighing 375 tons, was used for the off- and onloading of cargo. Today it serves as a museum ship, which, by the way, can be rented for special occasions. Also present at this unique celebration were many sailboats of various sizes and classes, such as the Beluga from Greenpeace, which was formerly a fireboat that was later converted into a combination river and coastal vessel. A special treat for the eyes was the large number of fire-extinguishing boats with their bright red colors and impressive fountains. The Alexander from Humboldt, a three-master from Bremerhaven with its green sails. This bark, which was built in Bremen in 1906, formerly served on both the Baltic and North Seas as a lightship. Today it is well known as the ship featured in Beck's beer advertising spots and also serves as a windjammer and sailing school ship for young people and others wanting to learn the art of sailing. This square-rigged vessel was christened on the 30th of May 1988. The Alexander from Humboldt was named after the famous 19th century German naturalist. With a length of 63 meters and a height of 30 meters above the waterline, following the Gorsch Fock, this ship is the second largest German sailing ship. The Teniers out of Bremerhaven, built in 1909. At a length of 25 meters, it belongs to a group of historic steam tugboats. Today it serves as a museum ship and came from Belgium to take part in the harbor birthday celebration. The boat in the picture is the Commodore Russer, a pilot cutter out of Cuxhaven. It was built in Papenburg in 1963 in the Meyer shipyard. It comes elegantly about in front of the St. Pauli gangway. Police Boat 15, boats of the German Life-Saving Association DLRG, the colorfully decorated Elbe Ferry Tondorf, and many boats of the Harbor Police created a lively picture on the water. Also, Fire Department Ship 33 entertained the crowds along the pier with its powerful fountains of water. On the lower Elbe and in the Hamburg harbor, the 1913-built steam tugboat, the Klaus D, from the museum harbor Uvelgöne. Its job was the towing of barges and other small craft. Whether at the St. Pauli Landungsbrücken or on board the ships, the party atmosphere was everywhere. The action, however, was not just on the water or along the pier, but also in the air, where helicopters performed their acrobatics with the Hotel Hafen Hamburg in the backdrop. In commemoration of this special birthday celebration, the German Post issued a special issue stamp with the title 800th Year Hamburg Harbor. The motif, the kipping, just off the bow of a Hapag ship, was drafted appropriate to the occasion in an oversized version of 2.5 by 3.5 meters. The first printing of this special issue stamp, valued at 60 Pfennigen, about 30 cents, was ceremoniously presented to Hamburg's then mayor, Dr. Henning Forscherau, by the president of the Main Postal Authority, Hamburg, Alfred Meyer, on board the Kipping. After the presentation and signatory ceremony, the fireboat made a short cruise through the harbor area. The issuance of this special stamp was accompanied by first issue sheets, commemorative postmarks, and postmark collection sheets, as well as numerous large placards, posters, and even contests and advertisements both in Germany and abroad. From the start to the very end of this unique harbor spectacle, visitors and guests also enjoyed the many attractions lining the pier area. As well as souvenir and raffle ticket booths, there were food stands offering a lot of different kinds of food. The German Association for the Rescue of Shipwrecked Persons was represented by the crew of the rescue vessel John T. Esberger, which has been on duty in the Baltic Sea since 1975. The Esberger has a length of 44 meters, a displacement of 185 tons, and a top speed of 30 knots. It also has an onboard hospital, a firefighting system, and a helicopter landing pad. Berlin was also represented in the form of an excursion boat with the impressive name of Moby Dick. The 70-meter-long Dresden, a 1926-built passenger steamboat with an oil-fired 300-horsepower engine, was enthusiastically cheered by the spectators. Especially at this event, the many artists and actors who took part made it an unforgettable experience for everyone. The entire harbor and gastronomy mile offered guests and visitors from near and far unforgettable impressions of Hamburg. Artists and actors showed what they could do, whether as gifts or simply for home, a portrait drawn by the artist Tony Ahl, or musical shows featuring, among others, Tina and the Capri Fisher. No matter where you looked, everyone seemed to be having a very good time. The entire length of the pier was filled with colorful booths, many offering delicious foods and drinks. Boats and ships of just about every size and type filled the harbor almost to the bursting point. Especially the smaller boats added to the enormity of the occasion. A true armada, made up of over 300 vessels, meandered past the hundreds of thousands of visitors gathered on shore. Small sailboats, fireboats, dinghies, kayaks, even historic flat-bottom boats. Whether purely on official business or for representative reasons, they too were part of this huge armada, the boats of the Port Authority and Harbor Police. Among the oldest participants were the previously mentioned flat-bottom boats. These historic boats from, for example, the Dutch Brown Fleet, were used for the most part in the flat water of the tidelands. Thanks to their extremely flat hulls and therefore low drafts, this type of boat can be easily intentionally put aground during low tide. The most distinctive thing about flat-bottom boats are their lee boards, which are intended to keep them from drifting due to winds or currents. At about the beginning of the 1900s, these boats were made of oak and were used to haul freight or as fishing boats. Today they're almost entirely used for charter operation. Because the everyday jobs of tugboats are not nearly as glamorous or artistic, the following Parade of Tugboats was one of the most memorable highlights of the entire fest. Resolute is truly the fitting name for this tug. With its horizontal pitching movement, it resembled more a graceful dancer than a clumsy everyday working boat. The Constant demonstrated how elegant tugboats could be, moving backwards in tact with the music. With its circular movements and horizontal rocking, the Fairplay 4 likewise showed just how creatively it could move. Despite the presence of red-lit fireboats, the gentle side-to-side rocking of the Fairplay 4 and John while going backwards was a real crowd pleaser. The artistic way in which the Hamburg harbor tugboats were able to entertain the thousands of spectators gathered along the pier made it clear that this was no simple tugboat parade, but rather a tugboat ballet. We now come to another interesting participant at the 800th-year birthday celebration. In addition to the launch Cremon 3 and the small boat Oma, with its busy hobby filmer, there was also the steam launch Otto Laufer. Under the description Harbor Police 6, it was built in the Stolken shipyard in 1928 for the Hamburg Harbor Police. Among its duties were the transport of personnel and the towing of barges. The Zoerlandet. Its name means southern land, indicating the origin of this impressive full-rig sailing ship. The Zoerlandet was launched in 1927 in Kristiansand in southern Norway. Until 1958, the 65-meter-long ship was powered entirely by the wind. Thereafter, this last big training ship received a little help in terms of power through an auxiliary engine. Originally, this square rigger served to train cadets. However, the years during the Second World War were difficult ones. Since 1981, the ship has been in the service of the Royal Norwegian Navy. Today, individuals of all ages can take part in sailing trips on this extraordinary vessel. The Nostra BV-2 was originally the Vegesack BV-2, built in the year 1895. BV-2 is an old fishery term standing for the port of registry, Bremen-Vegesack. Until 1921, this herring lugger fished the North Sea. After its fishing days were over, it served as a cargo boat in both the North and Baltic Seas, until it was sold in 1939 to a Swedish concern. Since 1980, the 36-meter sailing drifter has been active in, among other places, the Mediterranean, sailing under the name Nostra. Fireboats are working boats only, primarily equipped to fight fires and for the use in catastrophes. Their high-performance centrifugal pumps supply the water cannons used to fight fires on boats and of buildings along the harbor from the waterside. Conceived entirely as a working ship, the 1933-built steam-powered icebreaker Stettin was named after the Baltic Sea harbor by the same name. Until 1945, it was the flagship of a fleet of coal-fired icebreakers whose job it was to keep the waterways full of ice floes passable. With a width of 13.4 meters and its 2,000 horsepower engine, it can plow its way through ice sheets up to 1 meter thick without difficulty. The Stettin survived the Second World War undamaged and is today a museum ship in the Hamburg Museum Harbor Uvelgönne. During the summer months, it's used by guests for day trips. The 800th year of the Hamburg Harbor is certainly an appropriate occasion to say a few words about how the harbor came about in the first place. The harbor was founded on the 7th of May, 1189, by the then ruler of Hamburg, Count Adolf III. Through his special relationship to Barbarossa, the red-bearded German emperor, also known historically as Friedrich I, the Count received an oral agreement allowing the creation of the harbor. This took place in the town of Neuburg, located on the bank of the Danube. Unfortunately, while leading his army of 100,000 men on his third crusade in the Holy Lands, Barbarossa drowned the following year in a Turkish river in Anatolia. The first written document actually referring to the harbor was dated 1265, but with deference to the original oral agreement, the document was backdated to 1189. Barbarossa was born in the year 1122, the fourth son of Friedrich II, and 33 years later, in 1155, was crowned Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire by Pope Hadrian IV. He was the second king and the first emperor from the House of Hohenstaufen, the name of a German noble family, likewise derived from the name of a mountain in Württemberg. Well, enough of ancient history. A lot has happened in the last 800 years in and around the Hamburg harbor. With its size and rapid turnaround, the cargo terminal is Europe's second busiest, behind Rotterdam, and because of its excellent geographic location, has every chance of becoming the transport hub for Northern Europe in the future. The Stevenack Minerva, a three-mast gaff-rigged schooner from Holland built in 1878 for the purpose of transporting cargo. In 1994, the vessel was converted to a two-master with 330 square meters of sail. Restored to its original condition and furnished comfortably, the 30-meter-long Minerva has room for approximately 20 people. Whether by sails or regattas, a ship that is often at such events is the Darmordieja from Poland. Designed for sea voyages around the world, this three-mast schooling ship was built in 1982 for the Polish Naval Academy. On the 110-meter-long full-rigged ship, students from Poland and other countries are trained to become officers in the Civil Maritime Service. Also, trainees willing to pay part of the costs are allowed to take part on cruises. It was with this training concept in mind that the big sailing ship received its name. Roughly translated, Darmordieja means a gift of youth. Seen in the picture is the barge Carl Tiedemann, named after the entrepreneur Carl Tiedemann, whose firm for towing service, harbor transport, and stevedores was founded in the year 1879. Also, the previously mentioned boat, the Fairplay, belonged to his fleet of tugboats. The Amerigo Vespucci is the Italian sailing training ship. Named after the famous Italian explorer, it was built in 1930 exclusively for the purpose of training the cadets of the Italian Naval Academy. The over 100-meter-long three-master is similar in its appearance to the large full-rigged ships of the 19th century. Among its most prominent characteristics are, in addition to its high freeboard and stern gallery, also the painted white portal bands and the carved and gilded trim work on the bow and stern. With cannon, forecastle, and poop deck, the ship has 3 decks above the waterline. The forward end of the ship features an impressive figurehead of Amerigo Vespucci. For many of the visitors along the pier, this ship from Italy was by far the most attractive tall ship of the entire celebration. It takes a great deal of effort and money to keep such a ship in tip-top condition. Every 3 years, for example, the teak wood planks of the deck have to be replaced. During the summer months, with the addition of new cadets to the Naval Academy, the number of crew members grows to a respectable 450 persons. Hamburg received a very special gift from the Blumenfoss shipyard in the form of a painted floating dock. The Berlin graphic artist Roland Stegemann, better known as Rolandus, created the world's biggest floating picture on the sidewall of Floating Dock 10 in the Hamburg harbor. The 250-meter long by 13.5-meter high picture depicting the history of the harbor covered a surface area of 64,000 square meters, making it worthy of entry in the Guinness Book of Records. It took 18 months of intense research, including visits to libraries, talks with experts, and the study of books on the subject, before the enormous project could even begin. The actual work on the painting began on December 7, 1988, and would eventually take 8 artists 5 months to complete, requiring over 5,000 liters of paint. The work is so big that the details can clearly be seen on the harbor side almost 180 meters away. The project was made possible through financial donations from sponsors such as, among others, Autoversand, the German Post, the Hamburg Harbor, and the Container Terminal Authority Halle. Built in 1911 in Norfolk, England, and named after the children of the boat's owner, Nellie and Leslie, the single-mast gaff crab cutter was designed for dragnet fishing off the eastern coast of England. Until its collision with a steamship in 1934, in which the cutter sank, it carried the identification LN9 and was used for crab and clam fishing. After the boat was salvaged and repaired, it was sold to a Boston-based company and given the identification BN27. Following the Second World War, it was modernized and again sold to a firm in Denmark. Its fishing days, however, were now over. In 1981, the Nellie and Leslie was bought by private investors, restored, and converted as a cutter yacht. Fire or light ships, such as the Elbe III, originally served to protect other seafaring ships by being anchored in fixed positions in shipping lanes to the harbor and sending their light to the skippers of other vessels. The light was originally supplied by petroleum and later, after modernization, by gas. Working on fire ships was not without risk because in addition to gales and turbulent seas, there were the normal dangers posed by shipping traffic. When built in 1888, the 45-meter-long vessel was originally a 3-mast schooner. In the following years, it was modified for electricity, and an engine was installed. In 1966, it was renamed the Elbe III, and serves today as a museum ship in the Hamburg Museum Harbor Uvelgönne. During the summer, it can be chartered for excursion trips. The Gorsch Fock, a 3-mast sailing ship berthed in Kiel, is the pride and joy of its owners, the German Navy. Built in Hamburg by Blumenfoss in 1958, The 90-meter-long, 4.5 million euro school ship serves to train officer and petty officer cadets. With its visits to harbors on 5 continents, this widely traveled German bark has a special status, almost as a floating ambassador of goodwill. At one time it served as the motif on the backside of the old 10 Deutschmark bill. The Gorschvolk, more precisely the Gorschvolk II, was named after the pseudonym of the North German sea novelist Johann Kinau. The figurehead is an albatross which over the years has had to be replaced from time to time. Assembled on deck and in the shrouds, the cadets in their parade uniforms make an impressive picture. Over the centuries, many different kinds of boats and ships, schooners, scullers, ketches, or chouts, have played important roles in the history of Northern Europe. Now we'd like to tell you a bit about the differences between ship types among the group of vessels popularly known as tall ships. In this group of sailing ships are barks and brigs, as well as barkentines and brigantines. Ships from earlier times, such as caravels, cogs, galleys, or Viking ships, also belong to this group. In the 18th century, for example, a frigate was a full-rigged vessel having 3 to 5 masts with square sails, and additionally fore and aft sails on the mizzenmast. In the 19th century, for the first time, the term full-rigged ship replaced this term. These ships, also known as square riggers, sailed under such impressive names as the previously mentioned Americo Vespucci, Darmordjesche, Druzhba, Libertad, or Zoerlandit. Members of this group also included brigs and barks. The brig is a 2-masted ship in which both masts are square-rigged. The sternmast also carries a gaff sail. A bark also has a gaff sail on the stern mast. It is a vessel with at least 3 masts, all of which are fully square-rigged except for the rear mast, which is fore and aft rigged. Examples of barks are the Alexander von Humboldt, the Gorschvolk, and the Sagres. The Luciana was built in 1916 and, with its 380 square meters of sail, belongs to the group of Dutch gaff sail schooners. With a width of 6.5 meters and a draft of 2.5 meters, the schooner has room for 24 persons, including overnight accommodations in 8 cabins. For purely day excursions, there's enough room for 45 people. Since 1983, the 39-meter-long 2-masted schooner has been in the charter business. It's likely that no other vessel traveled further than the ARC Gloria, which came all the way from Colombia to take part in the harbor birthday festivities. From its home port in Cartagena, it traveled through the Panama Canal and then over the North Atlantic to Hamburg. Although the 3-mast sailing ship has taken part in many regattas and even sailed around the world in 1970, this was the ship's first visit to Hamburg. Built as a sailing school ship for the Colombian Navy in Bilbao in 1968, it was modeled after the Gorschvolk I. The most distinctive characteristic of the Gloria is its high compact bridge. Because of its logistical and provisions capacity, the ship can remain at sea for up to 2 months without having to make a port call. After its launch in 1937, the Sagres made several cruises before being confiscated by the American Navy during the Second World War and subsequently being sold to the Brazilians. In 1961, the ship was sold to Portugal for use as a school ship for the Portuguese Navy. The Sagres, actually the Sagres II would be the appropriate name, has a total length of 90 meters, a width of 12 meters, and a mast height of 46 meters. The bark has a total sail surface area of 2,000 square meters. The Sagres I was originally a German sailing ship which was eventually decommissioned by the Portuguese Navy. The Gesine from Papenburg is a flat-bottomed boat and belongs to the group of two-masted sailing ships. The 29-meter-long Frisian sprit-sail cutter was built in the Meyer shipyard and has been sailing since 1986 as a representative of its home club, Papenburg EV. Special features are its lee board and the square sail on its forecmast. Here we see the tugboat Joanna with the Druzhba from the Ukraine. The 3-yardarm rigged ship from Odessa in the Black Sea was launched in 1987 from its home port of Danzig. This modern converted square-rigged sailing ship is 110 meters long, has a mast height of 49.5 meters, and 2,770 square meters of sail. Built in the Lenin shipyard in Danzig, the Druzhba belongs to a whole series of so-called Mir-class sailing ships. After the breakup of the USSR, the Druzhba, which in Russian means friendship, was given to the Ukraine. This is the Argentinian sailing ship, the Libertad. It was launched in 1956 as the 5th school ship of the Argentinian Navy. The sleek 103-meter-long sailing ship frequently takes part in regattas, races, and windjammer parades. In 1966, its 2,700 square meters of sail enabled the Libertad to set a world record in crossing the Atlantic, making the journey in only 8 days and 12 hours. Its most notable features are its well-trained, highly disciplined crew and the excellent overall condition of the ship. Hamburg, which was originally called Hamburg, was founded as an archbishopric in the year 832. At that time, Hamburg did have a small harbor, yet it was not the same location as today's. The charter from May 7, 1189, giving the city the right to levy tolls on ships and boats on the River Elbe, was actually the birth moment of the Hamburg harbor. Public celebrations involving the harbor are in fact a very recent thing. Prior to 1977, events such as the Overseas Day commemorating cross-Atlantic business ties or anniversaries honoring harbor employees were strictly private affairs. However, on the initiative of the then economic senator Wilhelm Nuling, For the first time in May of that year, the city held its first public birthday party for the Hamburg harbor. However, the 800th birthday celebration was so special that it couldn't be simply limited to the month of May. More than 170 events were spread out throughout all of 1989. Some of the highlights were Sail 89, with a parade of boats, the International Ballet and Dragon Boat Festival, the medieval Hanseatic, the Festival Theater of the World, and the Hansa Exposition. Although the first public harbor birthday in 1977 was truly a very humble affair, today the event has grown to become the world's biggest harbor fest, with over 500 exhibitors' booths stretched along 3 kilometers of the harbor. A trip around the harbor to get to know it up close was an extremely popular thing to do even back in the 1930s, and it still is. Passengers can relax and sit back while the tour director explains everything worth knowing about the activities in the harbor. Whether it be the on- or offloading of vessels, or the construction and maintenance work done on ships in the Blumenfoss dry dock. In 1937, the cruise ship Wilhelm Gustloff was launched from the Blumenfoss shipyard. In January of 1945, however, while helping with the evacuation of mainly civilians and wounded soldiers, the Gustloff was sunk by the Soviet submarine S-13. Of the 10,300 people on board, over 9,000 died in the attack. In order to ensure an independent fat monopoly, in 1933 Germany upgraded its whaling fleet. Through the transformation of animal oils into solid fat, the production of margarine, soap, shoe polish, and glycerin were ensured. As one of the 7 whaling motherships, the Walter Rau was part of this upgrade. It was launched from the German shipyard Hamburg in Finkenwerder in 1937. The 177-meter-long, 23-meter-wide whaling ship could reach a top speed of 12 knots. In order to empty or offload the cargo of a ship, barges are used. Because barges have no engines, they are towed by tugs with long rakes along the quay wall or moved through punt poles. After the offloading of the ship is finished, the barges transport the cargo to the next turnover point in the port, for example, the coffee, tea, or spice warehouses. The Hein Godenwind was built in 1902 and sailed under French flag as the Maréchal Suchet. In the following 31 years, the ship changed names and owners a number of times. In 1933, it received the name Hein Godenwind and served from that point on the work of the Hamburg Youth Hostel. On the 9th of February 1944, the Godenwind was sunk in the Kurland Lagoon. The changes that have taken place over the years in the Hamburg harbor are even more evident with the following contrast between then and now. See for yourself. The building of St. Michaelis Church, nicknamed Michel by Hamburg's people, was begun in 1661 by order of the city of Hamburg and for the first time finished in 1669. It was the first time because over the years it had been destroyed a number of times by lightning, fire, and the Second World War, and therefore had to be rebuilt a number of times. In the 1970s, extensive repairs and renovations were begun. To pay for this work, a Hamburg businessman donated 4 million Deutschmarks, equal to about 2 million euros. Unfortunately, the amount needed to repair the damage is about 26 million marks. The Krameramtstuben is the only row of half-timbered houses still standing today in the Old Harbor District. Up until the 1930s, when the area was pretty much torn down and then rebuilt, the so-called Gängerviertel was a slum area made up of half-timbered houses inhabited mainly by poor harbor workers. In most cases, up to 8 people lived in one room. There was almost no drinking water, no sewage system, and poor air ventilation. These conditions were responsible for a number of diseases and the great cholera epidemic that caused thousands of deaths. Due to these crowded living conditions, life in this district was almost unbearable. Families even lived in the cellars of houses which, during floods, often filled completely with water and mud. After the floods subsided, the families simply moved back into their wet, musty, smelly rooms. In the 1800s, there were several Gängerviertel around the harbor area, including in today's Steinstrasse, Spitalerstrasse, and Niedernstrasse. The oldest houses dated back almost 230 years. Today, only a few of these half-timbered houses have survived the centuries.